Welcome to Billionaire Business. In this series, we're going to explode the myth that you just can't create another £1 billion business in the UK, because it's just not true. And we'll be talking to some fascinating people. My name is Ian Fishwick. I'm a serial tech entrepreneur. I've done over 40 mergers and acquisitions in the IT and telecom sector. I floated a business on the stock exchange, and it eventually sold for 100 million.
And I'm Chris Godsmark. I'm an M&A advisor. I've been working in the market for 2 decades, and I've had the privilege of working with many founders, chief executives, entrepreneurs, including Ian. What is it that makes an interesting business?
We invest Series A to Series C tickets. Everything from 10 to 50 million is our sweet spot.
What makes you think that this could be a multi-billion-dollar business? What's the bit?
In this episode, we're delighted to have with us Nils Howland, who is from Dawn Capital. Dawn Capital is one of the leading venture capital investors in Europe, with around 2 billion euros under management. And we're going to be telling the story, really, of the venture market today, and of course, moving on to some of the incredibly exciting and challenging new opportunities in that market. So, Nils, tell us a little bit about Dawn Capital. How did it start, and what does the firm do?
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Ian, for having me today. Very briefly about myself, I'm Nils. I'm an investor at Dawn. I have a technical background, studied computer science back in the days, was an operator before I started investing, and actually was on the other side as well, being at JP Morgan, buying and selling banks for other businesses. We at Dawn Capital are Europe's largest B2B specialist fund. We invest into B2B businesses out of a 700 million fund at the moment. We're in the 5th generation, so we've been around for about 20 years or so. Typically, we invest into software and fintech, having had multiple multi-billion-dollar businesses, which is what we want to talk about today, in both of these domains. And really come in when founders have found product market fit. And then what we do is we help them to scale through their go-to-market motion, meaning we take a lot of our businesses from Europe to the US over time. We help them set up the right team structures. We help them set up the right enterprise go-to-market motions and think through these scaling challenges that you encounter when you're literally scaling from a seed Series A business to a multi-billion-dollar business over time.
So let's go back to the basics. Okay, so you guys have got roughly 2 billion euros under management, and obviously you've raised it in chunks over time. Where do you get your money from?
We get our money from a variety of investors, institutional investors, which can be university funds and endowment funds, pension fund type of things, but also high net worth individuals. Originally, we had more of a UK base, and over time we've diversified that. But we have some phenomenal backers that we're extremely proud of and that we've worked on over the last 2 decades, which is what I think a testament to the work that we do together.
And how do you find your investments? Do they sort of come to you? Or do you go out prospecting? You know, is there an element of Dragon's Den where you're continually bombarded by new propositions?
I think it's absolutely a mixture. We have different strategies of sourcing. One is, of course, inbound. The other one is outbound, where you need to be on top of the market, constantly being in touch with early stage entrepreneurs, understanding when they go out and start to build something and brainstorm. So you're essentially seeding from early stage funds and being constantly in touch with the market. But sourcing is our bread and butter, right? We need to see and find the best businesses out there, and there's so many.
Are these UK businesses, or is it across Europe?
We are a European fund. It's across Europe. We have a strong UK footprint, but we've invested pan-European. And as said, most of our businesses we take to the US over time and help them with that step to become a global champion. But it's European founders. And I think that's sort of our real strength, to make sure that they have a fund in the market here that can help them navigate.
And what is it that makes an interesting business? Because when they come into you, they're small, right? So you can't know that the business is going to be £1 billion or €1 billion business. So what are the ingredients? And you think there's something there that makes a difference?
I mean, we could talk a lot around financial analysis and numbers and whatnot, but ultimately it comes down to the founder. We want to see and meet founders that are inspirational, founders that have a unique insight into a market. Perhaps we even have a thesis on the market, which we have a very thesis-driven fund, and we can challenge each other with these theses. And I think that's where we really get excited. People that are execution-driven, people that have unique insights into the market, and that want to revolutionize a market from the ground up. And that's where we had an earlier conversation where I'd say the ambition really is that we find multi-billion-dollar businesses. We want to have businesses that become an IPO-able business or a strategic sale to massive enterprises. And that's the ambition of our fund.
That's a very simple sentence, but it's much harder to do. I just want to find multi-billion-dollar businesses. I don't think you're alone in that bit. Right. So if I've got a good idea and I'm this inspirational founder, right, and I come to you, do I come to you when I'm pre-revenue, or do I have to be a certain size, or have you got a sweet spot?
Yeah, I'd say connecting it back, it's sort of when you found product market fit. That typically is a seed Series A stage. We invest Series A to Series C tickets. Everything from 10 to 50 million is our sweet spot.
So it's almost startup.
It is a startup. Yeah. It is an absolute startup. What does product market fit mean? It can be measured in revenue. It can be measured in, we have a couple of POCs with enterprise customers that are going extremely well. We are currently in contracting phase. It just means that your product is resonating well with a set of customers. And that's what we are looking for in terms of stage. Everything before that we leave to our dear colleagues in pre-seed and seed funds. But that's when we take over.
So you must have very close relationships with sort of angel investors, university, there's lots of people who invest in those university ecosystems locally, Cambridge Angels, these sorts of people.
Absolutely. We're super involved with our early stage funds. We consistently have exchange with them. We are hosting them. We are doing hackathons together with early stage funds where we sort of bring a later stage perspective, do lots of events together with earlier stage funds, but also with universities. Another part is we are very thematic. So let's take the UK AI as an initiative where we are contributing at the moment to make sure that we sort of have a perspective on AI beyond just the startup ecosystem, but also speaking to government and speaking to larger corporates.
The bit I'm kind of fascinated with there is, in this series, we talked to another guy who took a business from 5 million turnover to about 1.5 billion valuation. But for every one of them, there's an awful lot that didn't do it, right? And if you're investing so early, Series A, B, C, what makes you think that this could be a multi-billion-dollar business? What's the bit that suddenly gets your attention?
I would come back to the founder. I mean, if the fundamentals of the market match, and there's obviously the financial bit and the analysis of making sure.
So it doesn't matter which sector it is.
Is the addressable market big enough?
Right.
Can we underwrite a big enough addressable market here? So the TAM needs to be in the billions, right?
But the total
addressable market needs to be in the billions. That's for sure.
And it's not measured on like a UK basis or a worldwide basis.
I mean, it depends a bit on.
So you start with a global target addressable market.
It depends always a little bit on where the business wants to stay in sort of the medium and long term. If we take our fintech businesses, a lot of the fintech businesses are European players. They don't necessarily need to go to the US because the market is deep enough in Europe. So let's take Tink and iZettle, two businesses that we sold for roughly 2 billion each to large enterprises. Those were European plays. They've already had an eye on some of the other markets, but they were mainly European plays. Let's take Personio, one of the largest German outcomes that has been very much Germany focused at the beginning and then slowly started to expand into other markets. But when we talk about software, when we think about AI, most of our businesses take the jump and the move to the US at Series A to B. And that's our growth capital and what we are providing with our expertise as well.
Well, we'll come on to some of the success stories in a moment. But I guess if you think about venture investing, is it still fundamentally out of 10, you hope to have one that's an absolutely spectacular success, maybe 2 that have done really well, maybe there'll be 5 that just don't perform at all. I mean, is it that sort of numbers game, and what percentage would you say are, in your terms, successful?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at it, we would love every single of our business, we'd love to be successful, and that's what we underwrite, right? That's why we look at the addressable market. That's why we look at the financials, the go-to-market motion. We speak to customers, we speak to market experts, Gartner and whatnot. But ultimately, if we look across funds and the hit rate, I'm going to call it a hit rate now. It's typically still a few. The fund returner model is very much still alive across funds and how they raise capital these days and how they return capital to their investors.
And has that changed, would you say? I mean, maybe the market's changed, or arguably you guys just get better at spotting success stories, or is it pretty much for the last 20 years, it's always been the same percentage ratio?
I mean, I haven't been in the market for 20 years.
No.
20 years ago, I was still very much on the bench in the school. So I can't really tell.
Yeah,
you have. So it would be interesting to have your perspective on your outside-in view on the venture market. But no, yeah, we try to have successful businesses across the board.
Let's just probe that for a second. I mean, because some investors just bring a check. They just bring money. There's others who bring money and expertise. Where do you sit on that spectrum?
Oh, we sit very much beyond the money and expertise.
So what kind of expertise do you bring?
One of our partners actually loves to say we have the 24/7 SLA. As in, I will always respond to every single of my founder within 24 hours, at least. And she very much lives that, and that is very inspirational. We love to go very, very deep. We love to really understand the markets. We've just done an investment which we haven't announced, but we literally went to industry conferences. We did a massive industry survey, speaking to 40 of their potential customers and really surfacing the insights that could be helpful to the business. And that is just a way to show we want to help the founders to sort of, or we want to be a partner to the founders. We're very much hands-on.
In terms of international expansion, because that's one of the hardest bits for a founder. I might know the UK. I'm not great in Finland. I'm not great in the USA.
We have actually a podcast coming out, if it's not out already, which I would recommend everyone to look at. It's our US playbook. Because it's so fundamental to our businesses. We have 50 to 60 businesses, and 95% of them, it feels like we took to the US. And there are questions around, where do you land? What is the right location? Who from the team do you need to take over? How does a culture carrier model look like? How does the first pod look like? Who are the people that you want to hire and expand from? But I would advise everyone to have a look at that. It's phenomenal. We are interviewing many of our billion-dollar business founders, actually, that are talking about this.
And that's
successes.
on the Dawn Capital website.
That is on the Dawn Capital website. And that's really the playbook. Just as an example, we actually have a person sitting in Boston. She is hiring for us on the ground, helping our founders to build their go-to-market product and whatnot teams. She has a Rolodex of 1,000+ people, which is, again, showing the bridge between Europe and the US, which is massively important to us.
And, you mentioned the amount of due diligence you do, and I'm sure, all of the clever people in Dawn are super, super experienced at what they do. But a lot of the businesses that you deal with will have incredibly bright coding people. How deep into the DD do you need to go in terms of the underlying tech, the code, and the rest of it? And is that what makes the difference? Or is it, the more basic business things, the people, the strategy, the go-to-market, that kind of thing?
I have a computer science master myself, but I can surely manage the first 10 minutes with a lot of founders, but then lots of them are massively smart in what they do, right? They're absolute geniuses. So obviously it's hard to understand every bit of their code or whatnot. Tech and product is extremely important to us. It's what we invest into. There needs to be some level of defensibility, which is what we're testing for. We're seeing lots of businesses, a lot of pattern recognition comes into play here. But we are obviously no sort of tech people that do tech DD as such.
So do you do specific technical DD?
What we do, and that's what I would love to come to, what we do is we leverage our ecosystem. We have 50+ founders. All of them are technical founders. So why not make it a win-win for both sides and say, hey, one of our businesses is in the streaming space as well. You guys are building streaming products. Would love to match you two CTOs. The one CTO asks some smart questions. The other CTO gives some interesting insights. And we have a great exchange while it's actually doing an implicit DD. And I think that's the most valuable part that we can do in terms of DD, really leveraging our people that we have across the portfolio. And then we obviously have third-party providers that help us with technical and commercial DD in the confirmatory perspective as well. But again, there the ambition for us is not just to get the checks on the piece of page, but really making sure that when we do a DD, it can be helpful for the founders and the team to think about their scalability of the product, their architecture, what could be interesting ways to build slightly or to adjust your product or to move into. So it's more a feedback cycle instead of we are checking you and we are scrutinizing you. We really don't like that approach.
And is there a sort of rule of thumb where you say, I don't know, after 2 years, for example, it's slow progress, the sort of proof points that I was looking for, they don't appear to be developing in the way we expected. Do you sort of, in a fairly brutal way, being honest with you just make a call and you say, look, I think this is unfortunately just not going to work? Or is it more nuanced than that?
I mean, it's much more nuanced yet.
Yeah.
You love all of your children, right?
Yeah.
And your businesses become sort of your children. Everyone has different strengths, and some of them grow a bit faster. Some of them do different things and have different paths. So no, we try to stay and be extremely helpful along the way, and think creatively as to how we can make things work. Sometimes it ends in exits. Sometimes it ends in product pivots. We had businesses pivoting and still being successful. So what is important to us is to be on the board and help with different perspective and outside perspective to the business. And then again, leveraging portfolio and all the network that we have to bring some external perspectives to the table.
At this point in the show, we wanted to just pause for a minute and tell you about our sponsor for this series of Billionaire Business. Nets International is a global systems integrator and solutions provider with over 40 years of worldwide expertise in telecom, digital and infrastructure solutions. Nets operates in 7 countries with 3,000 plus projects delivered across 26 nations worldwide. From fibre and mobile network rollouts to enterprise IT, cloud, cybersecurity, automation and managed solutions, Nets delivers smarter, faster and scalable solutions for its customers. With over 1,000 certified and skilled professionals and their own Nets Academy, Nets not only builds infrastructure, but also offers managed services and flexible resource outsourcing to help businesses scale with confidence. Recognised as Cisco's Emerging Partner of the Year and Best Fibre Services Provider in the UK, Nets International is the trusted partner driving digital transformation and leading the charge in integrated solutions worldwide. You've got to be very patient though, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a game we're investing. Our investing horizon is 5 to 10 to over 10 years, right? It's not a stock picking.
I've worked with all sorts of different types of investors, and it's quite interesting to see how they have a totally different approach. So when I ran a public company, the investors were very much stand back. They weren't on the board. You know, I rarely saw them apart from every 3 or 4 months. When I work with private equity or infrastructure funds, then it's twice a week minimum. They're all over me. So do you sit on the board? Do you actually get involved?
We typically have board seats and board observer seats.
4 seats.
Board seats.
Oh, board seats.
And board observer seats. Typically 1 board seat and 1 board observer seat. We are very clear that it's your business. It's the founder's business. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing best. Again, we are here to bring external perspectives. We are here we are hopefully the first person you're calling if you have an issue that you want to talk about. We are here to challenge you consistently and to provide insights with work that we are doing. But again, only if it's helpful to you. We're not telling you how to run your business. That's not our job. That's very different from PE, just to be super, super clear.
And tell us about one of your deals, perhaps you're most proud of, or I mean, you've had a few.
And that's another question of which of my children do I love the most. I can't really talk about that as like picking one individual ones. I've had over the time at Dawn, I've invested into 8 businesses, deployed over 250 million in capital. It's been so many interesting rides, honestly, each individually. We've invested into a business in the Nordics called FlatPay. It's growing phenomenal. We've just done another investment in a space that I've spent so much time in, which is unfortunately not yet announced. But if I think about exits, I mean, a big exit that I had the pleasure or the luxury of being on the board for some time was LeanIX that we sold to SAP. It was...
And where were they based? And tell
They
us
were
a little
based
bit
in Germany.
about.
It was a multi-billion-dollar business valued at over $1 billion when they sold, and it was, I hope I'm correct with stating it, Germany's largest venture-backed strategic exit. So quite a big outcome.
Pretty good.
You've just seen how they've become extremely strategic to SAP and their migration of SAP for HANA. What was beautiful is that it has evolved over a 5-year horizon, that LeanIX and SAP have started a partnership. They've been driving their top of the funnel together. You could see how valuable it was to both sides. And then an acquisition offer came along that was beneficial for everyone. And we managed to get integrated into SAP, which I think is a great success, particularly in times, it was, I think, in 2021, 2022.
I mean, that's an amazing result. I mean, I've been running tech businesses now. I'm in my 4th decade of doing this, right? And I've met a lot of really clever techies, right? The issue to me has not been so much find the clever techies, it's selling. And so far, you've not talked about sales. Do you bring any sales expertise to these really clever coders?
I mean, we typically have a mix when we invest in a founding team, right? We typically tend to see someone that is technical. We tend to see someone that is extremely commercial, someone that can tell stories, someone that is heavy on the execution side. And we love to see that balance in the team. It's not just one founder necessarily or one CEO. We have that. We have those examples, but in most of the cases, we have founding teams that come together or founders that have hired a nice set of executives around them quite early on.
And if I've got a gap in my I mean, to me, the team's a critical bit, right? And sometimes when you try and raise money, and when I did it, I've not quite got the perfect team at that point. I've got 3 or 4 really, really good ones, but I've got some gaps. Have you got sort of a great contact book that says, yeah, well, we might be able to find one of them for you?
Yeah, and that's back to the hiring team. Not just a person in Boston. We obviously have a team in Europe, in London, where we're based. We have a talent team that has hired many of our go-to-market executives as well as technical executives. And we have go-to-market advisors. Those go-to-market advisors work with most of our companies, I'd say, almost. They've been in enterprise sales. They've been heavy in partnerships.
Do you have a time frame? I mean, if I'm doing private equity, they kind of want to be in and out within 5 years, broadly, right? Do you have that kind of structure, or are you a bit more open-ended?
I would say we're open-ended. We are very entrepreneurial fund as such. We have established a lot of great processes internally. And frameworks, but it's not like we're saying, 4.5 years, and now in the next half year we need to get this business out of the door. Not at all. Investing or getting on a board of a business is a bit like a marriage as well. We know it's going to be a long journey, and particularly now, I mean, we're seeing liquidity is a topic in the market, right? So people are becoming creative around liquidity and exit options, but it takes time, and we need to give that time to our founders to build great businesses and not pressure them with an exit every day, even though we're mindful of that, of course.
And we talked about themes, investment themes. I guess AI is the theme that everyone is talking about in every single meeting that you do. I mean, Microsoft are investing, I think I'm right in saying they announced they're investing $80 billion, 80, just this year alone in AI development. Is that the sort of 90% of your thematic interest in what you're looking at the moment as a venture investor, or is it, is there more, are there more different areas in the market, I guess?
AI is a big theme, and there are more different markets, and I could spend hours speaking about different themes. And you will see again on our website, we have this project called Horizons, which publishes all of the market maps and all of the deep dives that we are doing.
Well, you break AI into certain themes, do you?
Yes, and then we publish a
Just give
market
us a
map,
flavour of what those
all the
themes look
companies
like.
that we have. Those themes include vertical software. Those themes include IT services, a piece that we've recently published with a map of businesses that play into this market. Those themes include AI agents, infrastructure businesses, data businesses, cybersecurity. So really a range of different themes where we see businesses coming, businesses revolutionizing the market and essentially knocking on the doors of incumbents.
So AI in and of itself is it's a sort of enabler across different, sector verticals. It's not. Is it a theme in itself? I mean, is it something that you think of as almost something separate to the verticals themselves?
That's a good question. At the beginning, we've tried to break AI down into what are the different layers: application layer, infrastructure layer, tooling layer. What do agents do? But obviously, within the application layer, you have a plethora of different verticals, thinking around AI in construction, thinking about where we've just done an investment called Craft AI, thinking about AI in customer service, AI in sales, AI in finance, AI in legal. So there's a lot of different verticals where you can really do deep dives on itself. But just taking a step back and thinking around AI is changing the world massively at the moment. For me, the greatest analogy is always a bit to the Industrial Revolution. When we look back, the Industrial Revolution was a massive step change. It took time, but it was a 20 to 30% improvement of productivity, versus now AI is actually a 200 to 300% improvement in productivity. So,
and it's happening in a year.
And it's happening in a year.
The exciting thing, I mean, the Industrial Revolution took 50 to 100 years, right? And
we have 800 million users on OpenAI. This is 10% of the world's population.
Do you not worry about hype and overpaying? I mean, I've lived through so many tech trendy things. It seems like every other year we've got a new thing, right? I mean, it's AI. Are we at the top of the hype cycle, and do you risk overpaying massively for getting involved now?
I don't think we're at the top of the hype cycle. I think
we're
there's
not at the top.
So much more to come.
So we're still climbing.
I think we're still climbing. If we think about the adoption of AI, I mean, yes, we have 800 people using ChatGPT or OpenAI, which is a massive, large number, but then don't necessarily have it in their day-to-day workflow when it comes to running their RFP process, when it comes to doing their FP&A, or when it comes to the legal teams. It's not necessarily fully embedded, and I think there is a massive step change to come.
And do you see certain industries being hit before others? How's it going to pan out?
I think the operating model of a lot of businesses will change. So think about service businesses and knowledge work. And how it was performed, right? How did we bill a lot of the knowledge work previously? We billed it in terms of the hours that people have spent. But those hours are obviously minimized now that we have AI. So custom code, for instance, we had consultancies that built custom code and took weeks and months to build this code, which can now be built within hours. So we will need to rethink operating models of businesses and how we're actually charging for work. Do we charge for work, or do we charge for value and output? So there will be a massive change in that
That must
direction.
be a huge change for lawyers, for example.
It will be a huge change for lawyers.
Accounting firms. Incredible. Incredible.
I think this is the really, really interesting piece for me. And the big difference here is that, or sort of, again, back to the Industrial Revolution example, it wasn't around how Ford trained their people. It was around how Ford made people buy cars. So all of a sudden it became affordable. It was a completely different way of thinking about a car, right? And I think there will be some analogy to how you're selling services and how services are accessible and how people think about it in general.
Does it make your job more complicated, do you think?
Complicated as in how I source my own businesses? And
as an investor?
No, I think I love it. I use it in my day-to-day. I use AI. And what I'm thinking about is how can
I'm thinking about the pace of change, because you're thinking... I remember a private equity fund saying to me a couple of years ago, which was a great comment, when they pulled out of a deal, by the way, and they said, look, it's not year 5, it's year 10 that I'm worried about. Now, you and I might think, we might not necessarily be doing this in 10 years. But they made a good point, which was we'd be exiting in year 5. And so we're thinking about the story for the next investor to exit in 5 years post that, right? But with AI changing the world so quickly, we've gone from AI barely existing 2 years ago. I think Microsoft told me recently they probably think 100% of business users are touching AI or using it in some way, even if it's a fairly mundane way like ChatGPT. Does that make it difficult for you to predict where your industries will be going in 5 to 10 years?
It's always difficult to predict, right? Does AI change? AI changes how quickly we can build businesses. So the best example here is it took 3 to 4 years to really set up a business and grow a business 10 years ago. All of a sudden it went faster, around 2 years. And now we're seeing businesses coming out of Europe within months. They've reached 30, 40 million in ARR. And that's because they have massive productivity. They're building viral products. It's just a very different game. And the pace of change is phenomenal. I think it makes it more interesting.
Let's just talk about which types of firms are likely to be affected and see whether you agree with me. Because I've done a lot of work with SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, right? And the one bit that won't change in the UK is there's 2.5 million one-man bands. There's about 2.5 million between 2 and 250, and about 8,000 big ones, right? But it's broadly 50-50 in terms of employment. I can see in my head how the really big ones, if you've got a massive call centre, they're ripe for it. A mobile phone company, am I eligible for an upgrade and what's my best offer? I can see how you can do that. Down at the small end, where you rarely have many people in customer service, it's like 5 or less. It's a bit harder to develop agents for there because, one, there's not much impact, and 2, they've not really got the time or the knowledge. So it feels from this end as though you're more likely to invest in something that hits the big companies rather than the smaller ones. Is that true?
I'd say we have a big focus on enterprise software historically. Yeah. But there will also be interesting AI products for the long tail, the SMBs, and small businesses as well. If you think around the creation tools, let's take Synthesia as a video creation tool, essentially. It's not just the enterprises that they're selling to. They're selling to mom and pop shops that all of a sudden can do something they couldn't do before. And I think that's the step
So a lot
change.
of those freelance jobs like graphics and things, that they're going to
It's more like
hugely.
us now. Let's say we are a 10 people business. Let's use the example we're an MSP and we want to train the new people that are coming in. Previously, we wrote a manual. We wrote it on Word because we couldn't actually afford a company or a McKinsey to do a training program for us, right? It's far too expensive. But now all of a sudden there's a product called, let's take Synthesia as an example, which is cheap and easily available. So we can essentially build a video within minutes. It takes us almost no time and train people with that. Yeah, I think that's sort of how some of I think the interesting bit is how the SMB and the mid-market will now be able to do things they couldn't previously afford because they're made much more accessible.
But that's a really interesting thesis, isn't it? That actually the massive impact is on smaller businesses who now have the opportunity with these sort of productized enterprise-grade solutions for peanuts. Yeah. And so they can become massively professional in what they do for, in a way that just wasn't available 5 years ago. Yeah. I think that's very exciting. Yeah. Nils, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. I just wonder if we could finish with you giving some advice really to budding entrepreneurs who want to create the next £1 billion business. What should they... and they may come to you in 2 or 3 years when they've got the angel funding, etc. Yeah. What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, I think first of all, we've seen many of them coming to us years ago. I mean, let's take Contexa as an example. It's sort of one of the AI companies of the UK that we've invested in very, very early on. Neo4j back in the days, the graph database and that we've invested in, or DataIQ AI enterprise business that is a multi-billion-dollar company. I think what all of them had in common is they were extremely hungry. They wanted to build a $1 billion business and they wouldn't settle for less. They all, again, back to what I said at the beginning, had some unique insight into a market that they've worked out by either working extremely hard and speaking to hundreds of people to trying to understand what it is, or having some technical background where they actually knew how to build a proprietary advantage. Let's take graph databases as an example. But all of them were extremely hungry. And if you listen to Vish from Context as a phenomenal example, if you listen to some of his TV shows or podcasts, he's just an inspirational leader, and that's what it takes to build.
I think you've got to have charisma,
business.
haven't you? But also, to be frank,
try my best.
You do well. But I have to say, you've got to have a work ethic. You've got
totally.
you've got to be a workaholic, haven't you?
Can I finish with one last question? This is advice for the audience, right? And I suppose I'm representing the founders here. You must have been pitched by loads and loads of people, right? What's the one mistake that people make? So if somebody's going to pitch you, what should they not do?
Don't get lost in the detail. I think back to the inspirational leader. What it's all about, it's about storytelling, right? And tell us your story. It might be your personal story. It might be an interesting analogy. How I think about AI, again, it's...
So don't talk about the technology.
Don't get lost in the detail of what is this schema and this relational database that is connecting with this graph database or whatnot. I think it's about the story you want to tell, how you're seeing your business evolve. And I think that's what really makes founders great, if they are able to convey their own story into the business.
Nils, this has been an absolute pleasure. We could have gone on all morning.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you so much.
And by the way, thank you for getting up so early in Germany and flying across just to come and talk to us. That's tremendous.
No problem at all. It was an
cause.
absolute pleasure. It's always great to speak to you. And everyone out there, if you have great ideas, please reach out.
They know who to call.
To speak. Yeah, we love to speak to founders extremely early, build relationship, and find the next multi-billion-dollar businesses.
We won't put your mobile number on the website, Nils. We won't go that far, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ian, I have to say, Nils is a bit of a rock star in the VC community, but some great advice there for someone who's either starting a business or, scaling up a business. Yeah,
these guys, Dawn Capital, they're probably the biggest investor in software companies in Europe. And if you think that there's millions of coders out there, and how do you find what's going to be the next big software thing? And I thought it was quite interesting when we effectively said to him, what are you looking for? Because he didn't say software or coding, he said a founder.
People. Yeah, it's all about people. And interestingly, once he's got the into the mind of the entrepreneur, you've got to have that drive, right, as an entrepreneur. He's got a playbook though, hasn't he?
I thought the way that he described how you only get big enough if we can take a European company into the States. Most people fail, so we've been practicing at it and developed a playbook as to how do you do it. That's the kind of help that you need. I hate it when people arrive with a check but no help. We want a check, we want some money, and we want some expertise as well. The other bit I thought was interesting was when you try and raise money, there's a danger you think, I need this perfect team. I've got to cover all the holes. They know that early businesses are not going to do that, but they know so many people. They can fill the holes for you and help you. That's massively useful lesson.
It's probably the most important thing they do. You can be a bit cynical, can't you, about private equity and venture capital. But my take on Nils was they really do work hard, and they do it over an extended period, right? They're not looking to exit in 4 years. It could be 10 years.
Oh, it's 5 to 10 years. That's the advice for anybody who's raising money. Ask them what else they bring, apart from just money, right? Because we all need help. I think sort of one of the other ones, and it seems blindingly obvious afterwards, but I'm not sure it was at the time, is unless your target accessible market is billions of pounds, you'll never create a £1 billion company.
Exactly. You can have a great business idea and the addressable market is like 10 million. You can have half the addressable market, but your revenue will never scale. And it's an obvious point, but it is an important point, right?
Clearly, you can't have a conversation without mentioning AI with somebody like that. What do you think of his take on that?
Well, I mean, clearly, like a lot of investors, I guess, in the venture community, AI is going to be all pervasive, isn't it? It's going to affect everything we do as consumers, everything we do as businesses. But he was particularly negative about large corporations that charge by the hour, right?
Lawyers, accountants. I think what he basically said was, if you charge by the hour and AI can do it quick, how does that work then?
It's not great news for lawyers.
No.